Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from Route 66 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm way outside the Extreme Studios. I am in the Midwest, being joined by the other Midwestern patron. That would be RDV to discuss tonight Tulsa King Season 2, Episode 5, Tilting at Windmills. And, you know, RDV, sometimes a well-read man, a bespoke man, if you will, may talk about windmills having to do with Don Quixote and literature, and we don't care about it now because we're talking clean
Well,
energy. And of course, we're talking Stallone's character in Tulsa King. We're finally getting around to the friggin' wind farm and a few other stuff on it. A bit of a pivot episode, I
you
would call it.
you glossed over the most important windmill story, Frankenstein,
The Windmill of Your Minds, which is a great tune as well.
or Evil Dead, Army of Darkness. Yeah,
Well, you know, if it wasn't for that, fighting against windmill sort of stuff with donkeys and all that stuff Don Quixote provide us, we may not have any of that, sir. So, Tulsa King, we talked
Tulsa.
about this being kind of kooky and kind of interesting and fun. This is starting to get a little more serious, I think. What do you think?
Actually, this I started watching. I was like, man, this kind of just feels like it's just kind of be all talking. It's like everybody's playing phone call or repeating the same thing because it's. I mean, it starts off normally like kooky crazy like it does. You got Dwight. He's basically going with his daughter, taking the two boys, and they're gonna go get into this private school because all the pretty much that's the only school she can get into because other ones are booked up. And if anybody's ever watched New Girl or seen any of the stuff that feel good or this is one of those horrible schools where they're very far left progressive. And the reason I say horrible because there's no competition. The guy even says it. Oh, we play basketball, but there's no score. And he's like, oh, and oh, and also we do a play. It's called Little Orphan Annie, but everyone gets to take a turn being a Little Orphan Annie, boys and girls.
Yep.
And he's ready to deck the dude. So when I love it. So I mean, he makes kind of comments, and just like it's just like so he goes waits on the car with Bigfoot. But after that, he goes back home. And he talks, back to his daughter's new home, talks to his sister, and then she's like, well, how are kids supposed to defend themselves? You actually have street smart stuff. She's like, the world isn't like, and this is what it really bugged me because when she says the world isn't as dangerous as you make it out to be.
I know.
And I'm thinking he's like, well, yeah, put your head in the sand if you want to, pretty much. If we hit a roundabout about saying it. But she said, because his sister and his daughter team up, and he's like, yeah, everything's changing. The only thing that's changing is you, Dwight. And I really wanted to say something. I was like, oh my gosh. It's like, but it's that kind of writing though, because that really works because there are people who think that everything right now what's going on in the country is fine. Then there are people who see through the cracks.
Yeah, everybody has their own lens, right?
Yeah.
And I think we talked a lot in season 1 about part of the scenes in here. We usually get two Tulsa King isms or whatever, where you get Manfredi in there, and he's that fish out of water because he just got out of prison, and he'd be like not in touch with the pop culture terms of the day, or like not using money we saw earlier, right? Here, though, obviously it's a stab at the educational system, and it was interesting because it starts off when they're walking around with daily affirmations, which cognitively can have a positive effect. I certainly am aware of the psychology behind that, and it's interesting in its place in education. But I just felt like this has been a half-hearted effort for them just to say, you know what? And this is what caught my interest the most. Let's get the yucks out of the way now, because as he says to Dwight, he's like, oh, and you see a shot of a Bigfoot standing there by the car looking like Bigfoot, like a grunt. Yeah. And he's like, oh, don't worry, he disappears when I disappear, and you're like, okay, whatever. But the way they shot it, it looked like Michael Myers standing off to the side, and you're like, okay, it made you think about Bigfoot because you don't get this extremely jacked guy who's actually pretty calm and doesn't say too much,
pretty much,
without knowing that something big is going to happen, which we will talk about shortly. But yeah, to me, I felt like them getting that out of the way and then bringing kind of Chicky back in, where they were talking about what's going on. I thought it's interesting because they've dropped the ball as far as some of these other side plots and things going on, and we don't feel the fear coming from them, right?
So I want to back up a little bit. We go too far with Chicky and all that stuff. I like you said it's half-hearted. Actually, I applaud it because there's not many shows that go against the grain like this that haven't been canceled. So Stallone must have some star power, and this Sheridan guy, whatever his name is, the guy who does Yellowstone in this,
Mm-hmm.
he's actually has cojones to go up against Hollywood, because this is a no. You're not allowed to badmouth, question things, and talk, and because so I like this. So it is a breath of fresh air. We haven't had a show like this in a long time. So like last season, he made fun of the pronouns. It's just someone who's willing to go against what's considered the forced on norm.
Right.
And on top of that, you're getting Stallone being kind of kooky, and if you're not used to it by the first season, you probably won't like the show, because that's the kind of humor and kind of like subtle, like they go into current affairs, and they don't go too much into it, just enough to make you question as the viewer.
So talk to me about a big part of this episode deals with, was it Cal Thresher, who initially I thought debuted very strongly, but I think has been painted as actually fairly weak or having his hands tied. And I mistakenly thought that they would have him and Frank Grillo get kind of put together more, and they have it. And now it's really more about the subplot with the Chinese guy, Jackie, I think his name is, and potentially a link to the triads.
Jackie King or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's before we get into that, let's talk about the fact that we heard last episode the two guys working for Chicky heard that Chicky admit when he was drunk that he killed his own father.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy calls when Frank Grillo's character calls up, and Chicky's phone, he answers it, and they said we got to have a sit down. So that's the whole episode is basically the Chicky's right hand man says, how would we do this? We have a sit down, because that's the only way this is going to work out. So Chicky agrees to this. They get Frank Grillo, who says we'll go to Atlanta, Georgia. We'll have it like next week. We'll have a sit down. And they reach out to Goody. He's like, and he's like, hey, none of this is good for any of us. How about we all just make peace? That's what, because this isn't going to end well. And Dwight isn't really thrilled with it, but he's kind of like I think they're gonna go with it. My question is this: will this be a sit down, or will this be the taking out Chicky?
Right. And I wonder if this is going to be Chicky's coming out party or something, but I just don't know that they're done with the two characters, Cal and Frank Grillo here. I'm just not getting the feeling that where it's going with those guys.
Yeah, but so the other thing is, Dwight goes to see Delany, Jimmy Delaney's character at the ranch. When he pulls up, Tyson's waiting out to tell Tyson to wait there, and then you see Armand up there. So Tyson is sent by Dwight to go to Armand and be like, "Hey, I need the money," and Armand gets offended. And now
Armand's turned into a dick.
He is a complete asshole now, and. So at this point, it's in that Tyson's just kind of like gets in his face a little bit, and he's like, so I love it. I love that Tyson's actually stepping up in this episode. He's nutting up. He's not letting Armand, the little dweeb, the little Joe Pesci type, push him around. Because I think Armand's gonna get whacked in the end of this season. Because obviously, I mean, how does Cal Thresher know about the deal, the wind farm and stuff? But anyway. Well, Dwight's inside, and Armand tells Tyson off. Tyson goes back to the car. Cal Thresher shows up and starts Armand. He's like, "Wait, isn't that the guy who works for for Dwight?" And he gets a little curious though. And Dwight, Dwight is on the inside, in there. He's kind of like hitting on Delany, and then they agree to go on a date. But then he steps a little bit out of bounds and says, "What's the deal with Cal Thresher?" And she gets a little offended because she hates Cal Thresher. She doesn't want anything to do with him after their last episode. And because he says, "What we've been thinking, you're kind of a mystery to me. I want to learn more about you.
She's a dangerous one.
Yeah. So I'm waiting for her to have some kind of like hidden past or whatever. Yeah. But anyway, so. Dwight heads out. He runs into Cal Thresher, and he basically gets in his face and tells him, like, what's your, basically, I'm going to kick your ass. And then they're getting ready to just about fight. And then, she comes out with a shotgun, and he's like, "Hey, don't shoot me. We got a date this weekend," because she doesn't want any fighting on her property. So her property, I might expect, is, either she's an honorable person or it's a front for something else, and then she
Yes,
doesn't
and
want to
yes.
draw any attention to herself.
Mm-hmm.
So, so then after that, Cal Thresher leaves with his tail between his legs, goes out to his own place, and and you see him talking to the triad guy. Basically, he's like, "What are you doing? I don't know my men." He's like, "Well, I need him for something else. This is a partnership, you know."
A special mission.
Yeah, they go to the windmill farm, which Bodhi had just gone to previously in the episode, in this episode, early in the episode, to go there and see how progress was. And these guys start tearing down the place, destroying it. So Bodhi's friend Jimmy, who's also the other guy who's basically helping with weed business, calls Dwight. They speed over there. We get Radar Love by Golden Earring playing as everybody starts fighting. And honestly, it was a nice change of pace, because it was at this point it was just kind of like phone tag. People were talking about the sit down. I was like, I don't care about this. Now we're getting to the meat and potatoes, and everybody, you know, Cal Thresher made a move, you know. And at the end, Tyson's been held up some pent up energy from the past 2 episodes, so he lets it out and starts going off on a guy. Doesn't kill him, but like even Dwight says, like, "Damn, Tyson." And so at the end of this, like I said, like he learns that Cal Thresher is the one behind this. He goes to have dinner with Delany. And then she starts talking about Cal Thresher and everything about him. Yeah, and then apparently the waiter comes up, says, "Cal Thresher, you know, why don't you give you this bottle of wine?" He's like, "How about this? Keep the tab open, but give us the really expensive one."
Mm-hmm.
And then give another bottle to that cup over there. And they say they say "F you" to Cal Thresher. Very much a lot of talking in this whole entire episode. But like I said, I actually kind of liked it. At first I was kind of like, what is this? Because
right,
I was not expecting this after the last episode. I thought we are going to get a little more action. The only thing I glossed over was the fact that, well, Mitch, Garrett Hedlund's character, he is now learning the ropes of how to sell cars from the car guy. They're just waiting on GM to prove.
There's a great 80s song called "I Wanna Be a Cowboy."
Yeah,
and my cowgirl.
Even Dwight's, because Dwight's like, Dwight. I love how Dwight have a meeting about what they're gonna call the car company and all that stuff, and no one really knows. But he's like, Dwight's like, "Fuck, if that loser can over there pretend to be a cowband camera, you can do it too." You know, it's like, write a jingle. You know,
I mean, they're definitely moving a lot of pieces, right, in this episode.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like they're starting to settle up here.
So here's my prediction, though, because Cal Thresher, you know, retaliated as like, "Well, you did shit without my permission, killed that guy in front of me, you know, with poppy feeds, you know." So I think that the triad guy, because as Dwight says, like, "Dude, you don't know what you're messing with, you know," and like Dwight even mentioned to Delany, he's like, "Those are triad guys, most likely. They're used," and he even says, Dwight says, like, the Cal, when they're confronting on the farm, he says, "They're using you," you know.
Yeah.
So, which I believe it is, but I still think that because at the end of this, I think Cal is gonna snap. He's gonna snap. He's gonna do something, you know.
So here's my issue with that, in the sense, or just a different point of view. Let's say, I think it should have ended after the fight, serious, and not the date. Just to keep it kind of on a more serious tone, especially if they're going that direction. If we back up a little bit, the scene with Armand basically kind of getting all pissy because Tyson's trying to just collect the monthly envelope, whatever it is, right? I thought that was a nice little exchange, because Tyson's trying to be cool and he's feeling it a little bit, and he's dressed up and he's all pimped out. He looks great.
He's got the cigar and everything.
But I actually liked Armand in here, kind of like, "You don't understand, kid. If you get on his bad side, he will fuck you. You have no idea what's going on." And it's a lesson, because there's times when I just go, it's really easy to make the bad guy who's going to turn to be Armand. And we've talked about him being a bit of a bitch, but there's been some scenes where he's kind of said, "You know what, you're feeling his predicament," but not that you agree with or rooting for him, but that you go, if they just let this marinate a little bit and continue it would be more enticing, I think.
Dwight and Tyson were having ice cream and earlier in the episode, and right before that scene, and Dwight says, "You're never gonna be that guy. You're not gonna kill anybody. not while I'm around. You're not going to shoot anybody, because he wants to keep them innocent. He doesn't want them to end up going to jail.
We talked about this a few episodes ago, right? Where Tyson wants to get a bit more involved, and he kind of basically backs off and kind of almost lets him sing, and he's like, yeah, okay, this is cool, this is right. What you're watching, though, is the birth of a monster in a sense, and I think we sort of forget it, and that's a problem where, to your point, if you don't binge watch it or you're really into it, you might miss some of these things, because there's a scene I'm like, you know what? We skipped over it, and I think it's very important. It's the scene where the crew's getting ready to go up and investigate the windmills, and so they actually go to their to the pot store that they have in downtown, and it's an upscale place. They have the recording studio, which is a nice callback to a few episodes ago. And I like how they sit down and it's a natural conversation, right? You talk about the writing where they sit there and say, and this is Stallone's one of his sister's character that's on there trying to want to learn the business, right? So they're basically making a comment like, oh yeah, when people come in here, half of them are high already, so their inhibitions are loose. They want to go in there and sing, and it's kind of cool. It makes sense. Yeah, but it's a great way to not only reinforce what's going on, but for the new person here, the sister, to make the comment of, you know what would go great with this pot? Basically, that's what she's saying. What? Cookies, munchies, something snack. And I'm like, I like how this just felt very organic. But the best part of the scene wasn't even that. It was the fact, I forget her name. No, it was it's the blonde shaved head, Grace, who grew up, I guess, on the farm.
Yes.
She asked Bodhi basically, hey, if you're going up there, I just kind of want to let you know that, I grew up on a farm. I know how to do stuff. I would be interested in a job. And you're like, wow, you're seeing her kind of grow up, because she was an ass kicker at the end of season 1, right? And here she's just kind of put on the background. We get just a minute or two of screen time of her, and you're like, this could go somewhere where maybe she's over there. But you're right. At the end, I'll just say this before the fight. Cal, you started off strong. They're bitching you out. I get you're having your own internal struggles with the potential triads. I get all this. It's that whole sense of threat is really pissing me off, because it's not allowing the show to feel serious. I hope it changes and escalates, because the fight here at the end, even though it's Radar Love, which is a great little kooky 80s tune, it's not... It's effective. It does what it wants. You see Bigfoot basically go apeshit. But the part they should have focused on, I felt, even more, would have been Tyson beating the shit out of people and kind of just going to that dark spot and losing it. And you see Manfredi, right? He's like, yeah, fuck him up. And it's like, you're encouraging him when originally you thought of him as protecting him like his father. And so that's why I felt they kind of took their foot off the pedal here at the end by being a bit cute with the date.
So there is, you talk about the scene where Tyson was originally the guy that sledgehammer against his throat, and it was and Dwight paused and looked. He looked over at Bigfoot, who was also had a guy tagging him. And he made a decision who to help. So he goes up and he basically goes over to Tyson, hits the guy in the back, allows Tyson to get to breathe. So then Tyson decides to want to impress Dwight because he feels like he messed up. So he starts beating on the guy, and so Tyson's gonna make a mistake or something like that, or it's something's gonna happen with Tyson. I know that
they're setting it up. It's the old classic confrontation. It's the whole father-son dynamic where, if you call it pupil, master, and all that.
I'm better than you. I know what to do.
Master, I've got to defeat you, sort of thing. Yeah. Kind of like a father. You don't beat the crap out of your kid, but you intentionally are level difficult to make him realize.
Impress you because they messed up. He's like, oh, I know, I did it without telling you. I did this, because I figured I wanted to impress you.
Here's a question for you, though. Seriously.
Yeah.
You're watching the episode. And we saw Cal just coincidentally be up there at the same time as Dwight, and that whole scene going on. Because even they're talking about a horse, and you see Stallone's daughter in there for a brief second. I'm sure she'll be a bigger character later. But the thing is despite their little pissing contest, it's absolutely clear the way they shot it that we're seeing Stallone look back at Cal walking off with Armin, and they're just walking off together because Armin's a stable hand there. And you're like, wait a minute, he's got to know.
Yes,
Armin's, but they just show you watching it. If you didn't see that from an episode or two before, and it didn't register, or you forgot about it, you may be left going,
well, because
what's the big deal? He's got to know that. Why is he doing anything about it?
So he's probably waiting because he probably has somebody watching Armand,
right?
At least, because honestly, Dwight has to know. Like you said a couple episodes before, when all of a sudden Armand's got money.
Yeah,
out of
especially
nowhere.
he didn't have it. Yep.
He didn't have any. He was going through. So all of a sudden he's coming. He's like, yeah. And he starts bragging about it a little bit. So and we know Mitch watches everything.
Yes.
I'd be shocked if Mitch, it don't come forward and say that Mitch, the bar keeper or bartender doesn't know that Armand is dirty, but also knows that Goody has been talking to the guys. So,
Let me ask you this. I This is one thing that's bugging me a little bit too about it, because again, the season's been a little goofy, and it's just noticeable to me. It's not bad. It's just a little different. Now, his group, all right, they're basically a bunch of cast-offs and this and that. They're a lovable group of rapscallions and scallywags and street urchins and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
But generally speaking, no matter how good they are or how loyal they are, wherever they're at as a group, the one thing that's bugging me, I wanted to see how you thought about it, and I don't know if it's going to be an issue or not. I don't know if this is what Tyler Sheridan does in all his TV shows or not. It seems like to me that this particular crew, on paper, is completely effective as, Chicky's crew, as the Triad crew, as Cal's crew, as Frank's crew, as any crew that we've come across, right? And I go, should they be? Because they're not brought up in the family. They're all brought up as basically individuals. I just don't know how well that should work.
The way I look at this, the rake take crew is kind of like little rascals whenever they try to do something, they're not meant to be, they're the underdogs, it's like, it's meant, you've seen the comedy stuff, and that's what this is going with it. If this had been a serious more of a show, no, Fred would have been killed or gone. The guy who's a fat, guy, he's a security guard, doesn't do anything. Bodie would have been, taken out. Gracie and the other kid, the one that's was also hanging out playing that board game with Fred.
Yep.
Like, yes, those guys, like I said, they wouldn't, and it'd be a much more serious, darker show.
And you keep telling me Chicky, like in The Wire and other stuff like that, like he's a tough guy, a badass. And I think we saw him was in season 2 of Reacher.
Yes, yeah.
And I remember going, that guy's a really cool badass. I'm just not seeing it right now.
He's probably waiting for his moment,
Mm-hmm.
Well, they painted him in the show so far that he is a coward unless it's someone who can't fight back.
Right.
He's not all there. And then, like I said, and I can see Chicky and Cal Thresher maybe working together. Also, we have Frank Grillo's character, who he has a widow.
There's a woodcutting scene because you're not a man on TV or film until either you've had relations with a woman or you're cutting wood.
Yeah. First he was shooting at the gun range, and then now we're seeing he was splitting wood like Captain America.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm thinking, okay, what's he going to be doing next? Playing some acoustic guitar? Well, we've seen that already, right?
Yeah. So, like I said, he wants revenge, and we know that he's been talking to Chicky's right-hand man, and we don't know if they're going to take out Chicky together, because he may blame Chicky for not controlling his Dwight, and we don't know what's going to happen after that, because especially if they do have this sit down, it's not going to be a sit down. It's going to be a trap.
Absolutely. Come on. Everybody.
Why would it not be a trap? And if it isn't a trap, I will be generally shocked. And honestly, that might be better writing than having it just be a trap.
I would agree with that, and because, like I say, making Cal kind of look like a wimp after such a strong introduction's got me thinking, what is it they're trying to do here? And that does make me interested in what I think they're trying to accomplish. But again, to your point, I mean, the growth of the characters, whether they're going to be good or bad, I think is the interesting thing. I do think that some of the people need to die off, or I'm not saying change sides, but just go their own way or something. I really did think the FBI agent woman would have been back later, and I just obviously I'm wrong. I'm not having a problem with it, but it just seemed like they were so integral that would have been a thing, because she could get her back in good graces by helping out or something along those lines, or getting her revenge on the system that screwed over. Because that's one thing that is missing, is the threat of the government, an agent that's got infinite resources that can come after you in some form. We don't have that right now. Not yet.
Correct. With the triads already moving in on Cal Thresher stuff, there's gonna be, he probably might have the cops be alerted, and maybe, who knows, maybe the triads will be caught with everything Who knows? Now Cal Thresher not being a heavy is okay with me because every other show he's usually a heavy. And this character Neal McDonough, and whenever he plays a villain, Damien Dark, he was a heavy. He eventually did everything himself. Justified, he was a heavy. And he was clever about how he did things. So, and here we see him at the end. He tried to have Frank Grillo be his partner again, but we were learning that Frank Grillo says like, well, that's why I got out and I introduced you to the triad guy. That's why he's replacement.
I actually like that because you thought those two would hook up or they have a history together.
So,
but he's basically saying no. I like that. And we don't see a lot of Frank right now this whole season.
No.
I thought he would have a lot more screen time, and he doesn't. So that's kind of a bit of a hidden gem to me.
Like I said, I think something's going to happen. Cal Thresher's got something else up their sleeve because obviously we thought he was a pushover when the guy basically, shot the guys who were stealing from his farm in front of him. The triad guy, kind of made him look like a wuss. And here he says like, hey, it's like, you want to be partners? Well, you didn't tell me the first time. So how does it feel now? And so he's got a little bit of stones, but he's a dirty when it comes to like Stallone said, there's a way to do business. This guy is underhand, sneaky, dirty, That's not how you do things. I'm a respectful guy. I don't do shit behind your back. I tell you what I'm doing.
Well, in season one, I go, he strong arms Bodie into basically saying, where Bodie says, well, do I have a choice to your terms? And he goes, no. So, I mean, really? I mean, you could argue that too, but I'll close up with this. I think with Cal that I think he works best when he's like talking to Armin and he's not belittling him and that he's being manipulative that way and not giving rants and speeches, but just using common sense. I would love to see a little bit more of him kind of work through some of the other cast members, whether it's walking into the pot shop, right? Just on his own talking. Maybe he flirts a little lightheartedly with the blonde one or something, or just him being not a worm or a weasel, but being a little bit more indirect conflict wise with his teammate to kind of get them thinking about stuff or whatever. Or, hey, you hooked up Armin with 30K. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine, and blah. And then you see them later, something else happening. I hope that potential is not lost right now.
So here's my thing this is what I think Cal is going to do. He's got a hold over Armand. He's going to get Armand to do something that's going to get Dwight in trouble with the law. That's my thing. I think so. Because Armand works for him. And he's going to have Armand start going in and infiltrating more and possibly plant evidence. Or someone gets murdered and then Dwight's fingerprints are on the gun or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So
I smell a setup.
Yep. Because that's all this guy can do is sneaky setup stuff. He can't really do physical fight.
I want to see the group broken up a little bit for a big part of the next season. Well, and we see the next season them trying to work back together again.
Once they get this wind farm back up together, because they got torn down, they tied the ropes and they were pulling down the generators and everything. So once he finally gets back up, you're gonna see Gracie's gonna leave. She's gonna be there working at the wind farm instead of being at the shop. You're gonna have his sister in charge there. Freddie might go because he's proven where even Bodie says, like, get off your ass. You're supposed to be
useless.
Yeah, you're useless. And because now it's serious because they want protection. And while if you can't trust the guy who's going to protect you, he's useless. Get rid of him,
Yeah.
But so that's my thoughts, about that as far as that going. But like I said, this episode will start off like, okay, all we're just doing talking, a lot of talking, dialogue, and I was just like, I already have the old man for that. I don't need that. Check out. Yeah, we review the old man on Sundays, so check that out.
Speaking of Sundays, what do we have lined up already?
So, all right, so this Sunday coming up, normally we do a poll, and which features what you guys choose and what movie we're going to do on Sunday, but we decided to make executive decision. We are going to be reviewing The Invisible Man at 7 p.m. Eastern this Sunday. But before that, we'll be doing I got The Old Man, which Rob and I will be doing a half an hour before us, around 6:30 Eastern. And then at 6 Eastern, it's Columbo.
Correct. Season 2, episode 6 or 7.
We get a full lineup on Sundays.
Yes, we do.
And then Tuesdays, as always, is this How Long It Lasts. If this show ends before Halloween, whatever gets here, we'll probably do a movie review on live on Tuesday.
Absolutely.
But as for the poll is, the movie you get to choose from out of the contenders that lost in the previous polls. I added a new one. You have The Bride of Frankenstein, you have Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and then the other one was The Hunchback of Notre Dame. So we will review one of those movies. That is, just go vote right now. It'll let the polls live, and so that way hey, you guys are still involved. We just but also a week from this Sunday we'll be reviewing the Dracula, the original one.
1931, I believe.
I think it is. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So Invisible Man this Sunday, the following Sunday, Dracula.
Yes.
And then whatever you guys choose will be uploaded on Halloween night.
Correct. It's a quadruple header because offline will be Pixel and I, the young 20-something, will be reviewing Forever Night, the show that nobody listens to. And it's actually kind of interesting, even though it's a police procedural for the 90s. It's one of those late night USA TV ones. So if you're interested in that, check that out.
Yep.
The shows are available free on YouTube Action and Internet Archive. Down right now.
If you guys like growing up, watch like the show Angel, you like vampires, being a detective, working nighttime, working on the graveyard shift, check out Forever Night. What they're doing came out in 1992. It was a Canadian show because the Canadian sci-fi shows are always the best shows.
That's right.
Yes, Haven, all those
Eureka.
shows. Man. Yep.
Yeah, all of them.
So check out the reviews, which drop on Thursday nights at around 7 p.m. Eastern.
And let us know if there's anything else you'd like us to cover, guys. I mean, we're debating between Miami Vice and a few other TV shows to be doing next. The first season, which we enjoy doing, as well as movies. We're not holiday season. We'd all have to pick from. No shortage of content there. So I want to thank, the up to 20 people that were here tonight listening to this. Obviously, Tulsa King is a very fun show to watch. It's entertaining. We just talk about what we like and don't like, and if it works. And that's the gist of the Extreme Movie Show.
Guys, do the thing down there. Go down in the comment section after we're done here. Let us know what your favorite part of this episode was. Even if you haven't watched it, and you just happen to be here, just drop a like and go hit subscribe if you haven't done that. We got a lot of cool stuff. We got a lot of stuff in our backlog of videos on here on the channel. Just let them know what you're looking forward to, and we'll see you guys on Sunday.
Good night now.
Later, guys. Remember, stay extreme.